distinguished guests, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, friends and enemies.
Okay, so welcome to this week's episode of Make It Plain. This is going to be the last episode of season 3. So last episode for a while. Thank you everybody who has tuned in, whether that be on Spotify, on Apple, whether you're on listen just to audio, or also whether you're on YouTube. Please do like, subscribe, comment, do all the things. Always happy to hear feedback from people and hear from the listeners. So thank you for the support. I've really enjoyed doing this series. It went long for a bit. Kept it going for lots of weeks. Had lots of different interviews, lots of highlights. Really enjoyed it. Guseo Twins has joined as a regular as well. So yeah, had a really good series. Definitely are coming back. Not sure when, but sometime in the new year, we will be back bigger and better. So yeah, thank you to everybody. And again, please do like, subscribe, all of the things. So end of year coming up, kind of want to wrap up. Last week, me and Baseo did a whole conversation, end of the year, what's going on, etc. What was highlights and lowlights from 2024. And actually one of the things he said, as you get to the end of the year, always happens, there's going to be a celebrity that passes away, doesn't quite make it into the next year. And this time it was Nikki Giovanni, African American poet. I had a book, I think it's called Ego Tripping. I used to have a book growing up with the poems in there, and I think it's gone. I think I definitely donated it to the Nicole Andrews Community Library. So if you are in Birmingham, do please go down and check out the library, back of Soho Road and Linwood Road in the Marcus Garvey Center. But yeah, it's a really powerful voice. We lost Paul Stevenson recently. Quincy Jones passed away. There've been a few. Always is, as people get older. And you know, as you get older, always is people in your childhood, you kind of forget how people age, right? So always sad to see someone pass. Always rest in power, rise in power to Nikki Giovanni. But you don't mourn necessarily the elders. It's the next phase, and it's the phase that we will go to, and send off with really best wishes and made an impact on the world. Most you can do when you're around is make an impact on the world. Other big story, actually, of course, at the end of the year that's happened, just came out. Jay-Z implicated, accused of raping a 13-year-old girl along with Diddy. These stories just get terrible. Cat Williams just keeps on giving. Did tell us this would be the year we would hear all these things. I am not going to cannot speak to Jay-Z's guilt or not guilt. He obviously came out firing, all guns blazing. Wasn't me. Don't do this. You're just ambulance chaser, lawyer. You just want to make money, etc. So maybe, I don't know. All I would warn people is, just because people say they didn't do something, even if they say they didn't do something really loud, it don't mean they didn't do something. You cannot trust people. Now, we should have learned that one. But again, who knows? I don't know. But it's just all a bit depressing, isn't it? It's all a bit depressing. The big major icons in rap just being dragged down. Diddy, obviously, hugely successful commercially. Jay-Z, obviously, who knows? It's not a criminal case. It's a reputation thing mostly at this point. But again, that dirt just kind of sticks around, even when it happened or not. That's why he's been so vocally come out and said, nah, that's no way. Obviously, had Drake ain't got no charges, but when Kendrick Lamar spent a whole year calling you a pedophile, and the only thing you can do is sue the music company, it don't look good. That's what I'm going to say. Don't look good. So you're having all of these scandals, really just rap in particular recently. It's not just rap, obviously, but a lot of scandals. And it's all just a bit depressing, right? How do we treat women? Do we respect women? And the truth is, the sad truth is, we haven't. And hip hop itself has not respected women at all, right? I mean, people looking through Jay-Z's lyrics saying, "Oh, can we look how we treat women?" It's not great. That's the truth, right? There's a unfortunately deeply misogynistic culture in the lyrics, in the culture more generally, it seems. And it is something we have to accept and we have to address, right? This is not, and rap's not separate. There's deeply misogynistic culture in Hollywood. We had a whole Me Too movement not that long ago. So it's certainly not just a black thing or a rap thing. You see that across the board, right? And partly this is partly about the kind of fame that we want. It's kind of about the kind of fame that we that we look for, right? If you're going to celebrate music, which is deeply misogynistic in its stuff, don't really be surprised when people behave deeply misogynistically. You know what I'm saying? Like, the kind of two things kind of do go hand in hand. If you say this is the culture we want, and then people behave in a way, you can't really be surprised. It does not justify sexual assault, rape, all these kind of things, etc., in any way, shape, or form. But I think we have to ask serious questions to ourselves about, what are the things that we are looking for in the music? What are the things we're looking for in fame? Like, one of the things, I love hip hop, old hip hop, 90s hip hop. Hip hop died a long time ago, if you ask me. And I've never really been into the Diddy, Drake, Jay-Z, never been my thing. Because for me, when I'm looking for music, it's the depth, it's the substance. Is there something there? Is there something, the politics to it? Is there something to it? Is there some meaning to it? And none of that, it's just noise a lot of days. Just noise. It's just, I made lots of money, I got lots of girls, I do this and that. It's just water, right? It's nothing. There's no substance. And so you get really, really famous, you make really lots of money, you got all these groupies around, and you got no substance. Devil makes work for idle hands. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, we got to think about the people that were the what it is we want. Do we want political music? Do we want music with meaning? Do we want music with substance? That does not mean, by the way, that political rappers, Pac is my favorite, absolute favorite, had his own ended up in prison around sexual assault on women. So it's not like just because you're political, you're all of a sudden not going to have, you're not going to get on a scandal, not going to be misogynistic. Because again, guess what? In our movements, misogyny. Me and Basara were chopping up last week about King's revelations going to come out from FBI and all this, and it's likely going to be some bad stuff in there, right? So that is not to say just because music is political, you're not going to get no scandal, you're not going to get no misogyny. But I think it does raise a question where we say, actually, what is it that we want? What are we looking for? What are the values you're looking for when we're looking for music? And I think one of the things that maybe is changing a little bit, I actually talked about this in my class a lot because we have a module, Black Political Activism. And one of the things I talk to in the class is we talk about music, right? We talk about culture, and hip hop used to be more political. You had the Harlem Renaissance in the 20s is political. You had Black Power art, which is political. But the big thing is music is as political as the people. Like, when prior to the Harlem Renaissance, you had the Garden movement, the biggest black mobilization ever, the new Negro movement, which then the art picks up the politics, right? Can't not be political in that time because you've got this massive political movement, right? They're saying, look, we're changing, we're doing things differently. So the music's different. 60s, 70s, Black Power is huge. So the music reflects that. Reggae doesn't make Rasta, Rasta makes reggae, right? You have this political movement that makes this political music. And even up into the 80s, late 80s, you still had hip hop's coming out. You have 70s, you still have Black Power. The vest of Black Power is still there. So that's why you have all the messages in the music. And then what happens is politics, I don't say it dies, but it certainly declines. 90s, 2000s, we start to think we made it. It becomes about, can we get a good job? It becomes about, can we become billionaires? It becomes about, can we get money? And that's when you get Diddy. Right? That's when you get your Diddy's, your Jay-Z's, your Drakes, where it's about flossing and flaunting, and can we be in the system? Can we do this? We want to be rich. That's what happens, right? So really, the music is reflecting the politics. And so one of the things that has changed the last 10 or so years, going back 2013, Black Lives Matter, and in 2020, obviously, the politics is back again in a more bigger way. And maybe that is influencing some of this, like calling out culture, Me Too, making it a place where you can come out and call out the badness. And so maybe Kendrick now being popular is related to that. And Kendrick Lamar is not that political. Like, I like Kendrick. I ain't putting him in the 90s pantheon. Can't be there. Lots of reasons. Not really political. I listen to GNX. There's no politics on there. But there's some more substance. Not necessarily politics, but substance. It's certainly different. It's a different sound, right? It's different. There's something to it. There's some meat to it. And maybe now we are looking for that music again. We are looking for the music that has just a bit more to it. Maybe there's going to be a resurgence of that music. So maybe that's a change, a positive change that is coming. And it would make sense given the politics. But again, if we want that, that's what do we want? What do we want to hear? We're the consumers. And a lot of this is driven not by us, obviously. It's driven by what the white people want. If you're selling millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of records in a day, that's not just us buying it, right? But there is a question like, are we going to keep people accountable? Are we going to push this politically? And I think that does mean calling out things like sexual abuse, sexual assault, not standing for that. Also means calling out cooning, which is too much of that still happens in the music, by the way. People still busting Lil Wayne. Nah, that's some coon-horrific nonsense. I'm saying coon. Gotta call all of that. But what will really shift the music is going to be politics. It's going to be, if we have a political movement, the music will automatically become more political because that's where the music gets its things from. Not the other way around. Culture is a quote I always use from Negro Warren, American academic. Culture is crucial to revolution. It is not revolution. And actually the way it works is we push the music to be something. We create the culture that we need for the moment. And the moment, guess what we need? Revolutionary culture more than anything. But to get that, we need revolutionary politics. Anyway, I can go rant on for ages about this. I'm not going to. I did say I'm posting on socials the last few days saying I was going to do a mailbag to end the season 3. I put it out there, got some comments across Insta, LinkedIn, tried that. Really tried LinkedIn. I only really started the other day because people kept asking me about LinkedIn. LinkedIn, I guess, is the thinking man's Twitter. I don't know. LinkedIn, professional, I don't know, but I bought it there. So anyway, but definitely LinkedIn was useful for this. LinkedIn is Twitter. I ain't calling nothing X. They ain't got nothing to do with Malcolm X. So I'm just going to keep calling it Twitter until the end of time or until we leave it and go to somewhere else. Cause that place is, ooh. Yeah. Anyway, so put out the questions of, put out for questions. And so I'm gonna read out some of the questions that I got through. Hopefully this will be useful. Hopefully this will be interesting. Bit of a Q&A. So the first question that we have is on Insta. Insta is from an Insta account called Lammy Out. There's a whole Insta account. I think it's just at Lammy Out. But search on Insta, you'll find someone's put together a reasons why David Lammy should be out. And the question is, what do you think of Lammy? Now, I don't need to answer this question because last week we had this whole thing. We've had Baseo twins on the podcast a couple of times now. Every time she's been very, very, very critical of David Lammy. And last week we had a whole discussion about this. I've always been kind of quiet. I will only come out against black people when it's necessary. Try to do it. Sometimes you have to do it. Don't get me wrong. And Lammy's been someone who's at least been good on Windrush, has been supportive of things, supported psychosis of whiteness. It's not been the worst, but as foreign secretary, you got to do the white stuff. And you got to do the white stuff so much that it then can cloud your mind, right? So all this stuff about the comments around Israel, Palestine, Gaza, it's just been so bad. Oh my God. If you're going to be in that role, it's like Obama, white ass Negro. That's what you have to do, right? So I'm not going to rehash these comments. Last week, me and Baseo chopped this up quite a lot last week. But it did let me think, because I got sent another, but it wasn't a question, but someone sent me a post about the young man who is currently been sentenced. There's a guy in Dubai. I'm just going to Google his name here because I had it written down and have totally and utterly lost it, obviously. And this guy in Dubai who let me, I don't want to say this guy in Dubai. Let me just sit here and find his name. But I'll give you the background. 2 young people go on holiday in Dubai. One's a black guy. And he's 18 years old. At the time, somebody else from Britain, so 2 British people. The woman is 17 at the time, the girl 17 at the time. They start to have a relationship. They obviously get sexual in their relationship. And when the mom goes home, when the young woman goes home with her parents, and the mom finds out, sees phone messages on her phone, so obviously she's had sex with this guy, goes to the authorities. Because guess what? In Dubai, the age of consent is 18, and she was 17. So technically, he broke the law, right? And he's still in Dubai at the time, and so they go and arrest him. And he's been in there this is a few months ago now. So his name is Marcus Fakana. 18-year-old, had a relationship with a 17-year-old girl. No suggestion that this is rape, that this was impropriety, and that kind of very obviously consensual relationship. Mom finds out, not happy, calls the police. I mean, who does that? I mean, just at a real level, like, you find out your daughter's had sex you don't want to. So you're going to call the authorities in Dubai? I mean, that in itself says something. She's now 18 and girl. They're very similar in age. Clearly, this is a case that should not have been prosecuted. He has now been sentenced today. That came down today as I'm recording this. He's now been sentenced for a year in prison for this. A year in prison in Dubai for this. All right. And the reason that I brought this up in the Lammy conversation is that I came across this because someone, the person who sent it to me, the title of "The Family Feels Abandoned" by David Lammy, right? Because he's a foreign secretary. Obviously, I had him say nothing. The foreign and Commonwealth Office has said they're supporting somebody, but the families come out and said they don't feel very supported. They don't feel very supported. And David Lammy is this man's MP. The local MP is from Tottenham. So it's David Lammy is his MP. Now, I don't know what David Lammy is doing behind the scenes, but in front of the scenes, there's nothing happening. You don't know a person being put behind the scenes, but the boy's got a year sentence in Dubai. He's 18. I know I'd like to see more. It seems like the family would like to see more. I don't know. I can't say again. Don't know behind the scenes what's happening. But this is again one of those things where when you're in these positions, obviously Dubai, the Arabs, useful for whatever they're useful for, can't always rock the boat. I'm gonna almost promise you that if David Lammy was not, let's say Labour were in power, I think Lammy would have been all over this. This is the kind of thing Lammy would have been all over. Publicly, pressure, But you're in power, can't do that, right? In power, you gotta make friends. In power, you gotta keep friends with this, right? Just saying, this is what happens. Just saying, this is what happens. And again, I don't know, please. So I'll put that appeal out there to Lammy. Please do help this young man because it definitely seems like this shouldn't be a case where he should be in prison, right? But this isn't the first time. I mean, having looked back at this in 2016, it's only recently just been legal in Dubai, by the way, for people to have sex outside of marriage. There was a woman who went from Britain to Dubai, was raped, reported the rape, and they charged her with having sex outside of marriage. Again, part of you got to think about this: who are you in bed with? Who is Britain in bed with? Right, and this becomes the issue for us as we're in these positions like foreign secretary or prime minister. The reason why you'll never catch me ever running for any of these things, because you represent the state. And what is the British state? The British state is terrible. So the British state has arrangements with Saudi Arabia, horrendous laws. Dubai, clearly horrendous laws. Israel, wrong side of history, but that's your allies. And so you got to back your allies. And so if you're black and in those positions, you have to back your allies. That's what happens all the time, right? That's the game. That's what I say. Obama, white ass Negro. That's Lammy, right? When you're in that, that's what you want. That's what it is. It is unavoidable. It is unavoidable because you cannot change what the nature of those things are. You can cry. Maybe you think you can shift them. Maybe you think when you get in, you can't. Stop. Institutions change people. People do not change institutions. This is a warning to anybody that wants to go out there and say, look, I want to be a politician this, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be that. That's the result. If you really want to be something, Parliament's interesting because most people in Parliament aren't in the government. And if you ain't in the government, you got much more freedom. So again, Lammy at the government has more freedom to talk about winning the rest, talk about this, talk about that. If you're in the government, no, it's different. Can't do it. You have to make those compromises because that's your role. And the government ain't for us. Never for us. That's not what the point of the government is. The point of the government is against us. That's what it does. So the two things are incompatible. You want to be foreign secretary, you want to be chancellor, you want to be prime minister, and you want to be pro-black? Nope. Sorry. Can't be. Night cannot. No, can't be. Chicken. Malcolm X say chicken can never lay a duck egg. Can't be pro-black and be in the government. It's just not possible. This is why the pro-black MPs in Labour ain't in the government. Dawn Butler ain't in the government. Barabir Addy ain't in the government. Because you can't be pro-black and be in the government. Two things don't go together. One's oil, one's water. Put them together. They just separate. All right? So, I don't want to belabor the Lammy point, but that's the point. All right? So that's the point. You can't make these changes you think you can make in these systems. You absolutely 100% cannot make. It's very much been, and people ask me about solutions all the time. I will just stress here, solution, we need to do our own thing. We need to build our own thing, build our own organizations, build our own politics, build our own nations, build our own thing. So what we're doing in the HARAMBEE organization of Black Unity. Please do check out, get involved, because this is the whole thing that we are trying to do. All right, I'm going to go back to the questions, and let me take the top question here. I have this is from James B _92 UK on Insta at James B _92 on Insta, who asks, what is my emotional toll on learning how colonialism is affecting lives? He said he was reading The Psychosis of Whiteness and finding more and more angry and sad in equal measure. Is this a common feeling? Now, I do get asked this question a lot actually about, because when you're doing, obviously I wrote The Psychosis of Whiteness, or even New Age of Empire. And these are books, both of these books are about the really trying to nail down the history of racism, not just history of it, but the present of it, really bringing all the receipts, right? So New Age of Empire is going all the way back to genocides in the Americas, slavery of our people. And it's just terrible things. Like, I always say, like, the devil is in the detail. Like, I knew the things before I did the books. I knew all the things generally, but when you actually hear the stories, honestly, it's like, what? Honestly, you're just like, really? Like, I did not know until this New Age of Empire that I didn't really deep how the genocide in the Americas, the largest genocide in human history, up to 65 million people wiped off the face of the earth in a generation. So many people died. The temperature of the world cooled because they were creating greenhouse gases. 65 million people. Those stopped, and then that actually meant that the earth heated up more slowly. And that's crazy when you think about the industrial scale of death, right? Thinking about this idea actually came up on the podcast one of the other times. The idea that Africans sold Africans into slavery. Again, complete fiction, because Africans didn't exist in the idea. People on the continent, what we now think, yes, did sell people, but in what context did that happen? All right? In what context did that happen? They sold largely with prisoners of war. Largely it was to avoid themselves being enslaved, right? And there's these terrible stories at the time of like, I can't remember the book. I can't remember the book it was in, but in New Age of Empire, the receipt is in there. And, it was accepted that if your family member was taken on the coast, if you took two other people, you could trade your one family member. So if let's say my sister or my daughter has been taken, I know she's been captured. If I go capture two other men, they'll give me my daughter back. Now you tell me that makes us culpable in slavery. That's the metrics we're talking about, right? Even when you have these whole, like, there are whole kingdoms that emerge and say, look, we're gonna trade, we're gonna use as the basis of our economy is trading people. It's still that same logic. You can't trade us. You're not gonna take us if we trade somebody else, because that's what is set up on the continent. Absolutely. I mean, like, when I read that, how can you read that and not be depressed? All right. Even that, skip forward to now. Always tell people that now. Like, that stuff's terrible then, but look at the stuff now. When you understand that a child dies every 10 seconds because they haven't got access to food and water. And most of them children, all of those children are black and brown, and most of them are in Africa. Most of them look like my kids. Like, how is it? 20 odd minutes on a recording? That's a whole stack of dead kids. Today, not 200 years, today. And what makes it worse for us is that I now am a beneficiary of that. The fact that I can sit here, professor, doing this, all this on that, my material condition is because them kids are dead. How are you not supposed to make an emotional toll when you feel that, right? You hear all the pain, all the anguish, and then you understand that you're benefiting from it. If you're in the West. That's, honestly, it can't not take a toll when you hear all the details. Actually, one of the books about the violence of Europeans, that is a book called White Rage. I think I mentioned White Rage by Carol Anderson, where she goes into detail about lynchings, all this stuff, and it's horrific. Makes you want to be sick when you hear what people have done. When you really, like, when you properly, like, deep, oh my God, this wasn't that long ago. They were stringing us up from trees. It wasn't that long ago. They were stringing up women and cutting out babies, and they're dropping on the floor and stamping on the babies' heads. Honestly, it's terrible. And again, as I said, today, still happening. Today, the violence isn't usually as. I mean, one of the things that makes Israel Palestine thing so remarkable is that classic old school colonial violence. We drop bombs on kids. You can see the videos; it's terrible. But that happens all around the world every day. It's just not direct; it's indirect, right? Kids starving, kids going down mines, and the mine collapses on them, or they're all dead. That happens every day. That's a daily occurrence. That's not as direct. So you couldn't learn about this stuff and not have an emotional response, right? You couldn't learn about this stuff and not take an emotional toll. This is why I'm writing a Malcolm X book. So the Malcolm X book comes out May, Malcolm's 100th birthday. And I purposely have a chapter in there that's called That Wicked Race of Devils. Because we like to sanitize things all the time. Malcolm X, for a large chunk of his time, directly called out white people as devils. This is what made the Nation of Islam kind of famous in many ways. That the white man is a devil, born to be a devil. Now, obviously, this is not true. White people are not actually devils. Please, I am not saying that white people are devils. But I am saying, when you look at that history and you learn that history for the first time, what other conclusion could you come up to than white people are devils? Like, it's not really a big leap to say, oh, slavery, colonialism, genocide, billions of dead people around the world. A system that is based on death was produced by a people who are a race of devils. I can see why that happens. That's an emotional response. All right. It makes perfectly logical sense to make that argument. We have to understand it in that context. All right. That's not racism to say that. That's, oh my God, this is terrible. That's an emotional response. Again, it's not correct. White people are not devils. In fact, it's disempowering because it gives them too much power to say this. It's about the system. It's about, and again, like I said, we get caught up in that too. You know, if I'm saying white people are devils and I'm also sitting here telling you that I benefit from kids dying, doesn't that make me a devil? Again, not how it works. It's about a system. And it's about, but that whole logic of devil race, etc., is because it's an emotional response. There's going to be a toll. It's going to have that response. You're going to have a reaction when you read all this stuff. And it's going to be sadness. It's going to be anger. It's going to be depression. It's going to be those things. It can't not be. But what I would also say to you is that's what we need, right? So much, like, this is one of the things that gets me, and I'll probably do a whole podcast on it another time. So much of what we're trying to do now is to make ourselves feel better, right? So you're telling me politics is a politics of comfort. Like, I'm not saying you shouldn't look after yourself. I'm not saying you shouldn't have self-care. You should look after yourself. This is not a don't look after yourself, But your individual comfort is because kids die. Like, we live in the West here, and I'm saying that I want to make sure I can be pampered and feel nice and relax and sleep and go to the spa. That is the result that kids die. That is true, right? So that can't be the measure of our politics. You have to look after yourself, and the system is terrible, and the system is problematic, etc. You have to look after yourself within that, and that's going to mean compromises, etc. But your individual comfort cannot be the end point of our politics. Our politics has to be about the bigger picture, ending of that suffering, that has to be where we're at. And if it's not, then it's not real politics. So what I would say is, in terms of that emotional toll, it's important to recognize that you should feel those things. Don't avoid those feelings. We want to avoid those feelings while we pick up the nonsense self-help. What was that book that cost an Afro-Heritage, like, because of the book, Me and White Supremacy? You can just journal your way. Don't bun that stuff. No, that's what you know. You should feel bad. The world is bad. It's okay. It's the right emotion is to feel bad, upset, depressed, angry. The question is, where do we go from there? What do you do with them feelings once you accept that you have to have them? And the thing that you do, is you have to move, you have to build. You can't get stuck in it. You can't wallow in it. You can't look away from it, and you can't wallow in it. You accept what it is, and you say, where do we go from here? Right? That should push you. That should urge you on. That should spur you. And Malcolm said, the man that sits on a hot stove, when you sit on a warm stove, you're not going to act, right? If you're sitting down the stove just warm, you're not going to act. But if you're on a hot stove, that's when you jump up and you act, right? And one of the problems we find ourselves in now, but the biggest dilemma we have as Black people in the West, particularly myself included here, is that things have opened up enough for some of us that we can be relatively comfortable. Like, I'm relatively comfortable. I can go live my life fine, basically, right? Still going to get some racism. Not saying I don't experience racism. Of course I experience racism, but in the position I am in, I could be relatively comfortable, move on. There's no hot stove. When my dad comes in this country, he's on the hot stove, right? This is what I was saying before about racism. The nature that racism has changed is that the prejudice that my dad generation, mom's generation had to face, that's the hot stove, right? Can't get, and also structurally, because they can't get jobs, can't do this, can't that, right? So I'm in a position where I'm not on a hot stove. I'm on a kind of called warm stove. I'm still going to get racism, get it all the time, give you many examples. But generally speaking, I can go through my life, okay. I could just disconnect from all of this thing right now and be relatively okay, right? What this does, learning about how the world is, understanding how a condition our people are still in, that look like my kids, look like me, look like around the world, learning about the history of that and why they exist. That is the hot stove, right? That's the thing that gets me motivated. That's the thing that gets me motivated. That's the thing that means I cannot disconnect from this. I cannot just go and enjoy bourgeois professor life because I'm emotionally affected by it, right? I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel that. And that's the hot stove. So you have to feel it. You have to embrace it. You have to run with it, right? Because that's what will keep you going. That's what will push you on, right? So I always say don't run from it. You got to learn the brutality of it, learn all of it, learn what's happening, accept it, and use that as a motivation to build what we need to build. Because you cannot stop kids dying today without us building a different world. It is that simple. It is that simple. Black kids die because of the system. Not because of the bad people, not because of there's some corruption in Africa, not because of it's the system. If you don't change the system, you can't change the results. So use the hot stove. That's what I'm saying. Use it, embrace it. Don't wallow in it. Move on from it. But embrace anger, sadness as a political emotion. And that can take us forward. All right. Another question here from Moaz Nazir. This was on Instagram as well. And he says, or she says, or they say, I don't know. As racist propaganda is divorcing the facade and adopting old racial stereotypes and extreme racist policies with the rise of conservative left, do you think a spontaneous wave of violent groups, emboldened by state rhetoric policies, will start an insurrection in the coming years? Now, this is a good question, actually, because just ties back to what I was saying before about the hot stove. Unfortunately for us, oftentimes what we need is the hot stove. And the hot stove can be open over racial prejudice. And people are running at you, calling you nigger. People are coming at you saying you can't get a job. People are saying no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. You're gonna be more likely to respond, to act, right? And that, look at 60s, 70s, 80s. Look what spurred on Black Lives Matter 2013, the killing of Trayvon Martin. What spurred on 2020, killing of George Floyd. You need to see it, right? And so one of the things that happened, the only real thing that happened over the changes of racism is that prejudice declined. So we don't have as much of that anymore. We don't see it as much. And so because of that, we haven't responded as much. And so the question here is, this is the wolf and the fox. The wolf comes at you with the big teeth. Everybody gets angry, gets mad, everybody reacts. The fox comes at you shrewd, cunning, etc., and everybody's like, okay. So actually, yeah, if you do have the rise of the far right, the rise of the Trumps, the rise of the Kemmies, the racist rise we had the other day in the UK, if that kind of racist violence comes back, then yes, you are actually quite likely to spark a reaction. And maybe that's the reaction that we need, ironically. There's always been this argument from the left, they call them collapses, who say that you just need capital. Like Marx always made this argument that the conditions for revolution will present themselves because things will get worse and worse and worse. And as things get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, that's when people react. So you kind of need people to be uncomfortable to react. And so this is the same kind of thing, right? If you have this overt racial prejudice, if you have this police killings, then people are going to react. The only problem with that is we get stuck in that reactive mode. We don't do the building, right? The things that we really need to do is to build an alternative, not react to the problem, not react to the spectacle. So if you only just react to the spectacle, which is what we have largely done, right? Then when the spectacle declines, we don't tend to, then we're okay, right? So if we say, look, George Floyd, good example. Police officer, we want the police officer has to be arrested, has to be charged, has to go to prison. Doesn't usually happen in George Floyd's case. Did it stop the police killing people? No. They still kill people, still carry on. Still exactly the same. It hasn't really got any better at all. But we can be pacified by the spectacle. This happens, let's not happen again. All right? in the 80s in the UK, we had rebellions against police. There were reforms around the police. Stop and search. So back in the before 81, they used the sus law. So the sus law, suspicion law, they could actually arrest us and take us into custody with just on suspicion. No evidence, nothing. Not stop and search in the street, put you in a police van, take you to prison, take you to jail. That no longer happens. So they stopped doing that. So they say, okay, gone, sus law's gone. Great, yeah. But then stop and search comes in. Look at the rates, stop and search, go up. Oh no, terrible, Stop and search rates go down. Still getting arrested, still going to prison, still what other problems. So what happens the problem with the respond to the vicious races is that then we can be mollified by that. And particularly with this racist attacks, let's imagine, let's say what happened with the racist riots in the UK. They happened, widely condemned by policymakers, but lots of people went to prison, really harsh prison sentences, not actually as harsh as they gave us for the rebellions, by the way, but still harsh prison sentences. What do we do? Yeah, okay, fair enough. In fact, the racist riots, they weren't even probably, because of the way that we are now, because we have strongholds in like Birmingham, London, like me and Sarah were talking about last week, because we have those, they can't even come up in Birmingham anyway. You ain't gonna get no racist riots up in here. They just get run out. You ain't gonna racist riots in London. They just get run out. So they can't even have the same impact that they would have had previously because of the strength of the community. So I do think, ironically, there will be racist propaganda, etc., rise. I do think you'll see that. I do think you'll see us will respond to that, but I actually don't think that's going to lead to, it hasn't in the past, I don't think it's actually going to lead to the things that we need. And the things that we needed to build, alternatives, things we needed to disconnect from this and not connect to it. And a lot of that racist propaganda, what the reaction tends to be is, can we make it less racist so we can be more comfortable? And what they tell you, trying to be more comfortable isn't the solution to our problems. Our problems is trying to build something alternative. This does tie into the next question, which is from being_Bukola. This was also from Insta. And the question here was, do you believe a revolution has to be violent? And it ties into that last question. Do you believe revolution has to be violent? Ties into that question because, again, thinking about racist propaganda, thinking about that kind of overt violent response, there is this idea revolution itself has to be violent, right? Listen to someone like Frantz Fanon, think about Malcolm talking about revolution. Revolution is bloody. We need bloodshed. Like, there's lots of that about Malcolm. And this idea that revolution has to be violent, again, suggests that kind of the reactive mode, the mode that we need to be in, is this mode of, to be active, to be revolutionary. This is not necessarily true. So there's two things I'll say on this. One is, revolution is about building something different. The black radicalism is a political ideology, has a very clear analysis. Racism is in a system, has a very clear solution as well. You're often told that there is no very clear solution in black radical politics. This is not true. There is a very, 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 very clearly solution that's in black radicalism, and that is you build. Like Garveyism, build a revolutionary Pan-Africanism where you build organizations, try and do with HARAMBEE OBU. And that's not violent. That's not violent at all. Like if I'm saying, look, let's go and do revolutionary work today, that revolutionary work today is to go into your community, is to organize around health, education, economic, to build community, is to build a collective, is to put our money in and our resources in, is to do that here, Ghana, Jamaica, wherever we may be, come together, organize, build an alternative, right? On the African continent, that is to build an economic alternative, that is to build a political unity across Africa and Africa diaspora, Africa for the Africans, and to create an alternative. And nothing in that is violence. Not one thing I just told you is violence. That is not, let's go pick up guns and attack the state. For what? What are you doing? Let's go, what, we're going to run the capital of England? Get out of here. That's not revolutionary. But in the West, there's you're not trying to take over America. You're not trying to take over Britain. So going and being violent makes no sense. Defending yourself, fair enough. And like I said, we all defend ourselves. That's not even a question. The man ain't running up in here in the Birmingham and we're just going to sit there and go, yeah, or says. So that self-defense is so well established now, I don't think it even needs to be talked about. Look, revolution here in the West, there's no violence. It's not a violent act, right? The self-defense, you defend yourself, but it's not violent. Even on the African continent, the actual work that needs to be done is to build a political kingdom that is different, that is united. That's not violent. But And this is the big but. The act of revolution itself is not violent, but we are dealing with the most violent system that's ever existed on the face of the planet. There is absolutely no way on earth that we could build the things that we need to build to be independent. Black radicalism fundamentally says, look, Africa needs to be independent, totally take Africa out of the world system. There is no way that the West or the Chinese are going to allow that to happen without violence. Like, it's just not possible. There will be so much violence. There already has been violence. This is what happened 60 years ago. When Malcolm was still alive 60 years ago. Revolution was a real possibility, right? It was a real possibility. It was something that was happening around the world. And what they do? Killed loads of people. That's why Malcolm got assassinated, because it's like, oh, we can't have revolutionaries. So we know that they're going to kill it. So you have to therefore prepare for violence in that sense. You have to prepare for self-defense, because they will kill you. They will, 100%. Second part of that is, if you're on the continent, on the African continent, again, what are you talking about? Saying we need to create this different political reality. Well, guess what? There is already a political reality on the African continent called Western imperialism. All those governments, Ghana, Nigeria, are selling out to the Western interests of all the politicians stealing the money, taking it, etc. They're Western governments already there. So if you're going to take that power back, I promise you, you're going to have to use violence. They're not going to give it to you. Now I'm going to go, okay, here you have it. Yes, you are going to need to use violence in that sense. But that does not mean the revolution itself is violent. Revolution itself is, and right now, today, how do we build to that revolution? Because we're not in a place to do that. We are nowhere near in a place to have to have an alternative. None of the steps we need to do in the next several years are violent steps. Those steps are building steps. Those steps are organizing steps. And part of the problem we have, honestly, is that we don't want the work. The work is boring. The work of revolution is day to day. Go out, organize, run this, bring this person into this, provide resources for people on the ground, bring people in, build the base, build this, add a lot of administration. You know, the romance thing sounds all romantic. Yeah, we can go there. That's not what it is. It's about building. It's about that mundane day-to-day work. So we're organized. So one of the reasons we postponed the Convention African People till April 2026, because we haven't done the building work. We have to do that work properly, bring it in, build the kingdom, build people together. So we're going to hold the convention online in May, and we're going to use that to build the collective, build the unity that we need, so that when we come together in April 2026, it's serious, it's real. It's not just for show. It's not the performance. All right? Because we could do something for performance. We could do something to make us feel good about, oh, yeah, we went to that. Nah, it's about building it properly. That's what revolution looks like. So yes, to answer the question, you are definitely at some point, if this is serious, we're going to need violence. There's no doubt about it. Can't rule off the table. But that's not because it's violent in itself. It's not violence for the sake of it. It's not violence as a way of life. It's understanding the system that you are dealing with. It's a system that is going to be violent towards you, and you're going to have to defend yourself and probably use some proactive violence to seize the means, Marxist sense, to seize the means of production, etc., etc. But right now, today, no, you don't need violence. There's not even a conversation about violence. It's a conversation about building. It's a conversation about organizing. A conversation about infrastructure. That's what it's about right now. Right, what should I go to next? I'm going to go to a question that we got from LinkedIn. Like I said, the Thinking Man's Twitter, or the Thinking Man's Facebook. Probably more like Facebook than Twitter. Thinking Person. I should say Thinking Persons. Let me not be heteronormative. Thinking Persons Facebook. And this comes from Enrico Mullins, who's a member of the organization actually, and he has a couple of questions which are related, so I'll read them out. One is, what's the importance of financial sustainability vis-a-vis political revolution? Can organizations like HARAMBEE, Organization of Black Unity, prioritize financial sustainability and improve the financial standing of those in the movement to then reinvest back into our communities, using our purchasing power to then create our own circular economy in hubs where we have a high population presence, e.g. Croydon, Lewisham, etc., with the understanding that we need money to create the space for us to implement our own political, philosophical vision and overcome the current form of capitalism oppressing our people? Again, good question, because money is obviously the big thing, right? How do you get people involved? How do you get, not even just get people involved, keep people involved? None of people get involved for money. People need to eat, and to eat, you need money, right? This is one of the ironies about building revolution within capital. You need money, you need to eat, you get that money from a system which kills us, right? It's one of the real paradoxes with how do you build revolution, which is why people don't tend to build revolution. And so the question is, can you build sustainability with the hubs? Now, important, this is what we're trying to do. HARAMBEE OBU, the way that it's supposed to work, and we really have not been pushing it hard enough, and we're going to start to do that, and they're going to use the convention to do that heavily, is to say, look, you need to have branches in different parts, and they are localized, so Birmingham, parts of London, Manchester, Kingston, Kinshasa, you have hubs, right? Around those hubs, you build on education, health, economics. You bring together community. What are we doing? What is the strategy going forward? And economically, you try to sustain each other doing that too, right? So we should be on a small scale saying, look, we have to survive here. Are there ways you can bring in money, survive on ourselves? You know, this is not a black capitalist argument where we're saying, look, we just need black capital, but you do need some kind of version of black capital where you are collective economics. Can we, we spend a lot of money on things like food, we spend a lot of money on hair, that money, we should be trying to use that and to facilitate it. Now, the important difference between black capitalism and this cooperative economics is capitalism is about saying, look, we need to be rich. It's your Jay-Z's of the world, it's your P. Diddy's of the world, we need to be rich, we need to make the money. Individually, I'm just going to go floss and do it. No. This is about saying, look, we spend this money and it goes out. We need to keep it in, not so that you can individually be rich, it's so that we can support and provide ourselves, right? So, for example, if HARAMBEE OBU organization said, let's do a warehouse, we'll become a warehouse and we're going to get goods in for African shops and Caribbean shops so we can corner that market of African Caribbean shops and really support those stores. And then you get their money in from that and you make lots of money from that. I ain't taking the money walking off away with it. That money's being reinvested back into the organization, being invested back into the work that we're trying to do in here and around the globe. All right. Ideally, from this Make It Plain media platform, we're making the Malcolm X stuff. It's coming out for May for his birthday. Ideally, we're going to start making money off this, all right? That's not, again, enough for me to go make money, get a big salary, big job, take it. Look how well. No, the money gets invested back into organization. I can eat. Yeah, people who work on their thing can eat, but no one's getting rich from that. That money is going back into community, back into what they were doing. Right? That's the model, and that is necessary. And where we have that, we have to do that. And not just in the West, but also in the continent. Say, what's the biggest problem in Africa? Biggest problem in the Caribbean is that the money is leaching out. Right? Neocolonial, it's probably worse. No, probably it's definitely worse than somewhere like Jamaica. It's worse. All your money leaches out. How do we keep that money in so that we can build and sustain something different? Now, importantly, having said that though, this is one of the, paradox of Black radical organizing, is once you do that, what will happen is, in those areas, you're going to get better, you're going to be more comfortable, right? You're going to have more jobs, there's going to be more investment, there's going to be more stuff. And then you start to lose the eye on the ball, right? We start to not think about it, you just get stuck in that, we're doing all right. When we're not understanding, there has to be part of a much broader program. Malcolm called it the short range program. Build community, keep the economy, etc. But the long range program has to be African continent, has to be Africa for the Africans, has to be building a different alternative economic system on the African continent. So keeping in mind that, yes, we are survival pending revolution. We are doing what we need to do on the ground right now. But actually the point of that is to go long term. The point is not to get stuck here, which is why, again, Convention African People now in April 2026, the whole purpose of that is trying to bring us together as a people internationally, globally, so that we can collectively build, so that we don't get stuck in that one-way thing. We don't get stuck in that, let's just get stuck here, because that always happens. I swear, historically, it's always happened, even in the African continent. First, we're just going to have nationalism first. Then it's going to be Africanism. Never get past nationalism. So you can do it, it's important to do it, but it's not a solution. And by itself, that's not a solution. By itself, pooling our resources, economics, is no solution. That just gives us some of the capability to do other things, but that's not a solution at all. It's just recognizing that where we are, that's what we need to do so that we can build what we need to build. So yeah, good idea, necessary step, but it has to always come with that political radicalism underpinning it and that broad range, long step program after it. Because you and I getting money over here, that ain't doing nobody no good. That ain't do feel like it ain't. Even if we put up the whole community, black community in Britain, let's say every black community in Britain, we're flossy, we got money. That don't mean nothing if you got kids in Congo dying in because they're getting the resources that are giving us our money. Can't be done. So you have to work out and do those two things at the same time. And that is very, very, very tricky because those two things actually go against each other. But it's about building that political community, which again, why? Please do look out for details. We're going to put some stuff out about Convention of African People April 2026 when we get the dates and everything sorted, because that's the project. That's the goal. That's what we need alongside these kind of ideas as well. We had another question from the Thinking Person's Facebook. This is from Reverend Dr. Carver Anderson. I say hello to her because I know Carver, Birmingham based, done lots of work in community. And 2 questions here. I'm trying to work out the order here so I can pick them, because I want to go back and pick up the next question. 2 questions here. One of them is, how can intergenerational perspectives on Black liberation, identity, and self-determination inform and shape the role of the Black church in pioneering sustainable development in urban communities? Now, actually, this ties in with the last question. Like, I'm not religious in any way, shape, or form. Also, I would stress on not anti-religious. So if we look at, certainly with radical circles, you'll hear a lot of shade on the church. And certainly, truth is, church done some damage. Church has done some damage. Christian religion done some damage to us in many, many ways. That white Jesus thing, that the psychologically, economically, the church is a massive slave owner, huge damage to us. And there is a version of that church which is still doing that damage. Right? Always go to Malcolm on these things. If you're in a church, it's a white Jesus, white angels, white Mary. That's white nationalism. That's doing damage to you. You singing, he will wash you white as snow. That's damage. And any of those churches doing that, you need to stay out of those churches. Those churches are damaged. But having said all of that, church has also been a place where there's been liberation. Like, if you understand the history of the church, you understand that is a place where that Turner, Sam Sharp, slave preachers, right? Slave preachers, someone who's supposed to do us down. Most of them do us down, but because they had the autonomy, the capability to organize, they organized rebellion. And there's always been that side of the Black church that brought us together to organize rebellion. Even, look, not the biggest fan of King over here, and the civil rights movement. If you ever heard me talk, you can tell right now, the civil rights movement has not, delivered what it could deliver, which was not much, right? But again, Black church, huge in that. Huge in mobilizing people, getting people together, organizing, collectivizing, has the resources. If you're talking about hubs and economics, one place, I can promise you, go Sunday, any Sunday around the world, actually, not just in the UK, America, Caribbean, Africa, go around the world, find a place where there's bare Black people organized, putting money in, pulling their resources, community-minded, community spirit, the church. Right, the church and the mosque now. All right, so there's something there. And yes, often that thing there is really, really conservative and problematic. I'm not going to lie to you. But there's something there, and there's a history of liberation theology. So if you understand that history, understand how it can be used, it's not good to just say bond the church. Because I know a lot of people there hear that say bond the church. Can't do that. But people are. One of the things you have to understand is you have to go to where people are. People are in the church. You got to go to the church. And again, there is this revolutionary, there is this political history in the church that can help and can provide resources. Also, though, we have to say, understanding that hasn't been the case most of the time. Most of the time, the way churches work is they keep the money in the church. Pastor gets rich. Church looks good. That's about it. So I think we have to also be honest about it. We have to really, really, really be honest about that and say you have these hubs and you have these institutions that have lots of money. They ain't serving nobody but themselves or the church community. They ain't serving urban community. They haven't done that and not done that. So when there are places where they have done that, support history of it. And I think one of the things we have to do is go radicalize it, right? This is what Malcolm was trying to do. Go radicalize the churches. You don't bond them. You say bond church. You go radicalize the churches because they have the place. They have buildings. They have space. They have money. They have community. So our role has to be, in we're building these hubs, has to be to try and get the church involved. And now, importantly, that means you radicalize the church. What? I'm writing this book about Malcolm, and Malcolm has the organization Afro-American Unity, and it's very much about unity, bringing us together. How can we build, etc., etc., but not at the expense of the politics. You can't build the people who ain't on your side. So you can't do that straight away. Stop that. No. So what our role has to be to radicalize the church. Go into churches, build them, bring them in as part of that organization, and let's build together. Because you already have something there. Why are you not trying to use it? Right? It's not that big a step from community in the church to Black community broadly. We just can't. And I say the same goes for mosque, because lots of us Muslims there, mosques have that same role as well. Same thing for mosque. right? Now, you don't give up on it. You try and bring the people in, and try. And the intergenerational aspect of that question is, I think there's lots we can learn from the elders, and also lots of the world elders can learn from us too, right? That's a back and forth. And I'm in the middle of elders now, so I can say, between elders and younger here, I can say that, all right? There's lots of stuff to learn, but there's lots of stuff to be learned too, because there's lots of mistakes that have been made, and from those mistakes you learn and build. So I think that is definitely a role for that, and definitely something we should definitely think about trying to do as we go forward. Always put this out to the churches, to the religious organizations. Yes, please do get involved if you want to help build community, build survival, pending revolution. That's massively important. And think about some of the main key figures. Malcolm, love Malcolm. It was a religious organization. King, religious organization. I'm trying to think in the UK, I'm trying to think who the big political figures. Garvey is a big one. He definitely was in a church or wasn't a church person, but it's been a massive influence. And I think we should respect that as well, and then see where we can move on from there and go from there too. All right, next question. Carver had a second question, and this is going to be the last two questions I'm going to take before we wrap up, but they're tied together. So question from Carver and Reverend Dr. Carver Anderson: how significant are Black academics in fostering agency, spirituality, and social justice within the context of Black history and community transformation? That's question one. I'm going to group these two questions together. And the second one is from James _92 UK. He says, what will it take to have a Black Studies course reinstated / new institutions adopted? So what will it take to have a Black Studies course reinstated / new institutions adopted? So I'm going to take both of those questions together. Okay, so I want to take those questions together because they're both about Black academics, right? Well, Black Studies is more than Black academics, but I'll get to that. First question you got to ask, first part of the question is, what role do Black academics have, right? Now, this is important. And I want to, in addressing this, I want to straight away say, look, there's a difference between an academic and intellectual, right? Black intellectuals have a massive role, always have had a massive role in agency, community, everything, in the politics of it. Who's my favorite person who I've mentioned about a million times during this Q&A is Malcolm X. All right. And Malcolm is an intellectual. Definitely not an academic. Didn't finish school. Didn't finish high school, let alone going to professor and all that thing. All right. Claudia Jones, intellectual. Right. Black Marcus is intellectual. Marcus Garvey, Amy Jakes Garvey writes all the stuff down. Intellectual. All right. Go back to like people like Nanny. I tell you right now, we haven't got any of Nanny's writings. But she's intellectual. She's creating ideas. Haitian Revolution. They write this document down Haitian Constitution, the first Black Negro Republic, where they break down all of this, like intellectuals, Black Panther, but intellectuals. If I'm gonna go read like all the classics behind me, Black intellectual thought, it's Cabral, it's like I said, it's Claudia Jones, it's Malcolm, it's intellectuals. We've always studied, we've always thought about our things, and that has been massively important. It always has been, always will be to the struggle. And so intellectuals are hugely important. Thinking through these things is hugely important. Now, academics is something else. Academics is something else. And the reason I say that is because the role of the Black academic has historically been the opposite of the role of the intellectual. Just has. That's just the truth, right? Like the think about what an academic does. Think about, like I said, people, like I say professor, like I am a professor, right? But that is a work thing for me. That's a white thing for me. Professor to me don't mean, it's like chief constable. I understand what that means to be a professor. I had to go through all these white hoops. I had to be trained in the schools, trained in the university, trained in whiteness. You have to be trained in whiteness. What? We don't get. I didn't become a professor because I could talk about Malcolm X. Jeez. No, I became professor because I could do Marx. Yeah. So, I'm going to do a whole thing on Marx because people are like, this. I believe, another time, next year, give me some runway next year. But like Marx, Durkheim, Weber, like when I did my degree in sociology, that's how you get professor. You can do that stuff. You can have discussions. You can hang in discussions with these white theories. So, and that training, again, what's that? Institutions change people. So if you're looking to academics as the vanguard of something, the academics in the lead something, you're probably looking in the wrong place. People who will get very well paid, who've been trained in whiteness, whose job automatically, by the way, takes us away from community. The things that we have to do to get professors, the things you have to do, go and teach in universities where that's only certain people can be in. Go to conferences where it's just other academics. Write in ways only other academics can understand and read. Everything takes you away from community. So if you're just going to highlight a group of people who you wouldn't look to for revolution, I promise you, it'll be black academics. I promise you. So they kind of expecting things from people that it don't really make sense to expect from. Broader that, add in the fact that the university is one of the main features of neoliberalism, the main mechanisms of neoliberalism. One of the main mechanisms of neoliberalism. Where do people learn to ruin their countries? They come to the West. They come to university, learn international relations, politics, PPE, and go mash down the African, Caribbean, and Asian countries, right? What was, when they massification of higher education, why did they let us into universities in the first place? Because of revolution on the streets. America is 60 because you got black power, you got civil rights. They're like, we need to do some of these niggas. Let's give them education, put them in school. UK, it's not till 1992 that they have massification of higher education. And what happened in the 80s? Rebellions on the streets. What we do to these young people? Let's give them education. Let's give them education. That will deal with them. Part of the reason we're in university in the first place is to pacify us. Part of the job of the black intellectual is to pacify. That's what we do. That's why I say professors like Chief Constable. Don't get twisted. That's a job. But go back to what I said about the church before. This is what I say all the time in talks now is professors like slave preacher. That's my job as slave preacher. I've been given an elevated position because I can do whiteness and they want me to go teach whiteness. That's what I'm supposed to do. Pacify you. Right? Come into university, get pacified, get some debt. Especially now, get some debt. But like we had in the plantation, slave preacher was also oftentimes the person who led the rebellion because of that privilege. But what I want to stress here and why I answer the question here is we can subvert our privilege, but it is subverting our role to do that. So to expect it is probably wrong. This is why I read a lot of books by academics and I'm like, okay. I ain't going to name names because I got too many friends here. But like the product that we produce, the way that when black political writing came into the universities, I promise you it got watered down. I promise you it took away all those radical elements to say, let's go and revolt. Let's go and do this. Let's go and do that. It became very, very much a theoretical, let's not do nothing thing. All right. Should I do? Malcolm X was coming out next year. In the Malcolm X book, I have this chapter, You Left Your Mind in Africa. Because Malcolm would love to cause black people who were taking us the wrong direction. And unfortunately, there is a cottage industry of black academics who are taking us in the wrong direction by drawing on radical ideas, but watering them down to the point where they don't mean nothing. But at this point, it's like, so you can feel good that you have these radical ideas, but you ain't actually done nothing radical. So it's really just to make you feel good. It's kind of like a religion in many ways. And I'm going to say Afro-pessimism. Jeez, my days. That is one of them things that just needs to go away. Like, honestly, the fact you read it and you go, okay, anybody know Afro-pessimism? We're getting towards the end of the pod, so I don't want to go this whole long thing. This may be a whole podcast, maybe in the future I might do. Please ask me a question about this. But this is kind of this idea that takes on radical ideas. Blackness is social death. Blackness is, anti-blackness is a feature of the world. Yes, for black people to be free, we need to end the world. That's true. So let's go end the world then, innit? Like, you don't just say it and then sit in your office. You say it and go end the world, right? But that never seems to come with these academic prescriptions. Anyway, so we can't look to academics broadly as a class of people who are going to lead revolution. It's not going to be the case. We're not the ones. Believe me, I've been in this game enough to know that. Doesn't mean we can't do it. Doesn't mean there's not some good work to produce. There's some really good academic work produced. Don't get me wrong. That can highlight the issues, and what academics have been good for is highlighting the problems. But if you want solutions, probably not coming from us, right? I will say, look, I can give you the solution very clearly, which is why we started HARAMBEE Organization of Black Unity. It is to build an organization that's global, that has us all in, that has different, but that's not an academic idea. That's some Asa Garvey radicalized by Malcolm, right? That's what that idea calls community. So I can show you that, but I'm not showing that because anybody could have picked that up from community, right? So I think academics can, just like church can, just like we can be part of something. But I promise you that we need to have organization outside of uni that's going to pull us into it. So, for example, the reason why I'm giving you that radical argument is not despite I came into university with that argument. I came from British Black Power, so I came in with this argument already, and I've stayed with it. It didn't come from university. Me being an academic did not make me make the argument. It's complete opposite. I came in with the framework. I kept the framework. The framework's still there. It's not come from everything I've learned in university. It's told me the opposite. We're going to water down that to the thing where it's nothing. So we can be part of it, but we need, the real struggle is off campus. The real struggle is community. The real struggle is there. And similarly to music, if we've got strong, vibrant community pushing academics have to be responsible. Academics can't just roll up around with this nonsense they've been doing for too long because they get called out, right? Similar to that. So I'm not saying academics ain't got no part to play, but I am saying that we should not in any way leave it to academics for agencies, spirituality, social justice, community transformation. That should be community led. And that leads to Black Studies. The Black Studies question is Black Studies is community. Black Studies. So when we put the Black Studies degree at BCU, we were doing something that hadn't been done because we were taking community oriented approach and bringing it into the white university. We're saying, look, this is the Black Studies thing, which has existed for centuries, existed in the UK for decades, through Saturday School, through things like African People Help Organization, through National Black People's Day of Action, all these things, right? It's community led, community focused. And we brought it into the university, not the other way around, right? And so we said, look, can this exist in the space? And for me, it was always an experiment. But I always said, this is an experiment. Can this work in this white space? Can we do this? And maybe the answer is no. Like the undergraduate course is gone. I had a whole podcast about this, but lack of numbers, lack of support, mostly lack of support from the uni, mostly lack of how do you market it, right? Everything's marketable. How do you market? How do you attract people? There's a lack of fit to that what we need, right? So you could change Black Studies to be something that's more marketable, but it's not Black Studies, right? You could change something to be something that's more uni, but it's not Black Studies, right? So it's an experiment. So the question of, and this is part of the reason why, like, when the course got closed, like, obviously, it's years of work. It's so much stuff gone. One day I write a book about this. There's so much stuff going on in between these years. There's so much personal sacrifice been put into it. And look, I'm certain that if we'd run it properly, we had the support, we could have got the people, could have got the numbers, kept it sustainable, whatever. But part of the reason you ain't see me come out here be like, oh no, we need to save the cause. You ain't see, never heard me ask for no campaign, let's do this, let's do that. Because, like I said, it was an experiment. And if you tell me it can't work in the neoliberal white institution, I ain't going to cry about it. I'm going to say, maybe not, right? Maybe it can't work like it. Maybe it can't work. And actually, maybe there's other ways to do Black Studies which don't say that it's Black Studies isn't more valuable because it has the credibility of academia. That's the wrong way to see it. The Black Studies does not get its value from its critics. It's like, oh, we got a degree, so now it's credible. No. Black Studies is credible without a degree, without university. This shows the university is not credible. This shows university is a space that it's not worth Black Studies. This is why I'm not running it. This is why you're not here to see me run it down. In fact, what we're going to do after Christmas is we're going to start piloting running Black Studies courses in community. So we're going to run Intro to Black Studies. We're going to run it in the Marcus Garvey Center in person. It's not that big center, so about 20 people can be in there. And we're going to put it online. And we're going to do courses in community. And then anybody can sign up. Please do look at, and this will be coming out soon. I'm going to do a free taster course. It's going to be put online as well. You have to pay something for it. Look, free domain free. Free domain free. We're trying to keep the cost as low as possible, but you have to pay a little bit for the thing, but definitely not £9,000 a year. And try and democratize and spread it out to as many people as possible. Because I have to say, it's never really sat that well with me that we teach stuff in the union. And it was a few years ago. I had one student. I was teaching we got a module called Black Political Activism, and I was teaching about Black radicalism. I think I was teaching about something. I think it was Black radicalism. What is Black radicalism? Da, da, da. And one of the students was like, "Wow, this is great. Every Black person should know this." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's a good point." But I'm only teaching it to the people who came and did £9,000 a year. You know what I'm saying? So there's always been, for me, a bit of attention in there. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start running the courses. Run the courses in community, wider access, international access. And maybe that's a better way. Maybe that's the way it should have been. Like, I am not someone who's weird to say you have to have a degree in this. It has to be higher education. It has to be. Nah, I can't do it. Because there's so many, one of the things I've learned throughout the years of trying to do this is the institution is a problem. And to be quite 100% honest, finding people that can teach Black studies within these institutions, which train whiteness, which expect whiteness, which judge you by whiteness, is really difficult, right? Like, it's massively hard. And that's not criticizing anybody personally. That's what the system does. Systems change people. People don't change systems. So if you're in a white system, it's really difficult to maintain and be able to teach something which is community focused, community oriented, community. All right. So what's happened in a lot of Black studies in America, unfortunately, is it has been. You can look at these courses and they're like institutionalized. Community's gone. Nice ideas, lots of, but the community is gone. There's no aspect's not there. So the question of what we take to a Black studies course in a new institute, for me, it would be it'd have to be a uni that would say, yeah, we see the value on it, we see the community value of it. And also I stress, we do have a master's. So I'm saying undergraduate for Black studies. But I will stress here again, we do have a master's course. The master's course actually did just get approved. So we're going to have a master's. So it's not like I'm definitely. Undergraduate is one of them things. But master's, we're going to have a course. We're going to run that course. We managed, so Dr. Deanne Taylor, who's at BCU with me as well, they've been really pioneering on this. And the way that we've done the course is you try to keep all these community elements in it, right? So the international experience, there's community experience, we really have tried to keep it. But the key thing to that, and to be honest, like I said, if you want Black studies in universities, it's about coming and doing it, right? We're going to run this course, we're going to have this master's, and we're going to promote it. And if no one comes and does it, they ain't going to exist. So if you want it in the uni, you have to come and do it in the uni, to come and support it in the uni. I think it's massively valuable. Again, like I said, I always thought Black studies undergrad and masters can work. It's a way that affirms people that you can come into university and you can study, and you don't have to do the white stuff. You can study and legitimately study stuff which is useful to yourself and to gain into community and get a degree and go on. So I do think it's valuable. Masters, same way. We have this master's, we can come in and get proper experience of doing things and applying Black studies. So yeah, I mean, we have the masters. And if that works, and guess what? If that works and that's popular, maybe we get back to undergrad again, if that's what we want. But it has to be about you have to support it. I mean, the simple fact is you have to support it. People have to come and join, tell people about it, come and take part in it. So we're going to have Black studies, 2 tracks now. We're going to have community undergrad modules, and we're also going to have the masters, MA, Black studies, where you can get those qualifications that are important. So I think thinking about why hasn't any other institution adopted it? Sad reality is they don't like Black people. They don't want to hire the Black people. Like I can promise you, we could do undergraduate Black studies somewhere, like particularly London, somewhere, a different uni where flexibility of courses, but they don't like hiring Black people. And this is a structural problem with universities. They just don't like hiring Black people. You'd have to hire us to do it, and I just can't see it. So, but again, what I would say is we do still have Black studies masters. It is still there. It will still be advertised. It still exists. I think there is a model that works. But it's making, at this point for BCU, is making sure the master's works, and then maybe you can go back. But I would also stress, and always will stress, that it's not just about the uni. Black studies is before the uni, and Black studies will be after the uni. Black studies doesn't depend on the uni. Black struggle doesn't depend on the university. Black struggle has to be outside the university. So we build and continue Black studies wherever we may be. But Black studies is hugely important, massively important. Where are we going? How have we gone wrong? What are we doing forward? What are we doing next? What do we need? That's Black studies. And that work has to continue forever and ever and ever. And that is something we're going to definitely try and keep push forward with, etc. So yeah, that was the mailbag. I actually went on way longer than I was expected to go on. So if you did get to the end, thank you for listening. Thank you again for all the support throughout season 2. Season 3 will be back with you in the new year at some point. And yeah, have a good break. Time, whatever you do, Christmas, Kwanzaa, whatever you do, New Year, 2025. Yeah, the reality is the years are always bad, but we have 2025. Malcolm X's 100th birthday. That's something to celebrate. We will have Convention Afrikan People. It's going to be online still. It's not been cancelled. It's online, May 17th to 19th. Hoping to have the Malcolm X documentary made for then. We also have Building Towards Convention for African People in person in Gambia in 2026 in April. Please do subscribe, like, join HARAMBEE organization Black Unity, www.blackunity.org.uk. Get involved, hear some more, join in with the Black Studies Of course, we're going to start running next year as well. But yeah, it's been great. Had a good year. And we'll see you in 2025.